how are you? I wanted to create a little video for you. So I know we've been doing some Q&As. You guys were asking about a couple different things Q&A related. So I put together some questions so that we can talk about some of your most frequently asked questions for me. So let's just dive in. Okay, question number one. This one actually came up a few times. People wanted to know a little bit about vitamin D. So somebody asked, I actually liked this one. There was a lot of ways to ask this. Somebody said, will vitamin D help my mood? Yes, vitamin D is really good for mood. It's good for bone healing. It's good for tissue healing. We actually do need vitamin D for repair. So many benefits to vitamin D. And I do recommend only certain brands. Do not go out and buy vitamin D from actually don't buy it from Whole Foods. I can tell you that right now. I've looked at all of theirs and I have not found any that have vitamin K with it. So you do need vitamin D to be absorbed appropriately with a specific vitamin called vitamin K. So I would definitely say connect with somebody. I'd be happy to help support you through getting a high professional grade quality vitamin D that can support you. But don't just go out buying vitamin D because you probably aren't absorbing it if it's not the right kind. A recommended dosage, I always opt on the side of a higher level dose because we burn through so much vitamin D. So 5,000 IUs is a pretty good daily dose. Some people do require more. They might need 10,000 IUs every third day or something like that. So definitely vitamin D is a good one to take. Make sure it's a professional grade product. How do you know what your values are? Typically it's through a blood test. That's the best way to do that in terms of testing yourselves. Someone asked, is it okay to cleanse your body from time to time by fasting? Absolutely. So intermittent fasting is a concept that has been around for so long, and there are so many health benefits to fasting. Usually what happens when you're fasting is that you give your body a little bit of a break, and that allows your organs to kind of clean themselves or get rid of things that might be in them. For example, the liver. By not stimulating it frequently, you give it a break. It has time to rest. It has time to repair itself. Imagine that there's damage to an organ and then you're constantly eating and you're asking it to do something. It doesn't have enough energy to repair. It's just busy doing what you're asking it. So I love fasting. I usually opt for an 18-6 window. I think that if someone's going to be fasting 18 hours off, so no food for 18 hours and then 6. Did I say 18, 16? I meant 18, 6 if I said 18, 16. 18 hours of not eating and then 6 hours of eating. And obviously, if you're somebody that's going to be new to this, you don't just dive into that. You kind of work up to it. I know when I work with my patients that are trying to lose weight, sometimes we'll adopt or incorporate a fasting strategy for them. And we might start with 10 hours first, then we might move into 14 hours. So you can sometimes build up how much of the fast you want to do. Now, when you're sleeping, that doesn't count as a fast. So a lot of times people are like, well, I sleep for 8 hours. Isn't that fasting? No. And the reason why is because by default, your body knows that you're supposed to be sleeping, and it doesn't really look at that window of time as enough time to do the things that happen during a fast, like liberating sugar from different tissue, from skeletal muscle tissue or the liver. It doesn't have the ability to do that during a shorter window. So definitely fasting. There are medical supervised fasts. I once fasted, I think it was a 2-day fast. I was I would say quarantined, you could say, for 2 days. I did it. It was the most incredible experience. I definitely think I got high off of some natural compounds, and you will see that in the literature and from people that will share with you their experience, that there is this high that you get from fasting, and it's hard to explain it. It's almost like a therapeutic, I'm not sure how to explain it, to be honest. It's just a very cool feeling, and it definitely takes you into a different mindset. But it also needs to be medically supervised because there are some things that can happen. Not everybody is a candidate to fast. So this, of course, by default, none of this stuff is, I'm not telling you to do these things. I'm just sharing with you my thoughts about them. Of course, consult with your provider in terms of what's right for your health. These are just general kind of rules. This is not go fast for 18 hours. This is not go take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D. It's just my kind of thoughts around things I've seen in clinical practice now. And I definitely think there's benefits to fasting. I have been fasting now for the last couple days probably since, I don't know, maybe like Friday. I've been fasting for a long period of time. I broke the fast, fasted for like 20 hours one day. Definitely down weight. That is a side effect. That's not always why people do it. That is a benefit to fasting. You can lose weight, but it's more for like a metabolic reset. It's to kind of clear your body of things. There's so many benefits. Somebody was asking me my thoughts on birth control and safety. I don't endorse using birth control. Obviously, as someone that's holistic, I'm not a big advocate for having hormonal imbalance and then going into a conventional system where you're now putting more hormones into an already imbalanced place. I am not, proactive for birth control for pain modulation. I don't think that there's a reason to use birth control. Obviously, usually this is what happens is that if you need birth control because you're having clotting, you're having heavy periods, you're having a lot of bleeding, if those are the reasons that you need birth control, there's a problem with your hormones to begin with. And then throwing in all sorts of hormones and creating like a hormonal cocktail is not the best option. Of course, if you're using birth control to prevent birth, then yes, that's great. But if you're using birth control for the off-label use of trying to regulate your menstrual cycle or to fix problems with your female reproductive cycle, your menses, I don't think that's the best option. I could definitely support you through that if you're someone that's like, I do need help. My periods are very painful. They're really clotty. I don't want to use birth control. I would be happy to share with you how we can balance out estrogen and progesterone. Now, this morning I was on a couple calls and virtual calls, and I was talking with someone about this, that as we gain weight, a lot of times if we gain weight, body fat, adipose, those actual adipose cells or those fat cells start to become endocrine producers, meaning they're now producing hormones. And so what can happen is that when we actually gain body fat or adipose, we have more estrogen in our body. So a kind of, I guess, easier example is for men that put on a lot of weight, they can develop gynecomastia where they're actually developing breasts. Why? Why are males developing female traits? Because too much estrogen in the body starts to actually produce more female hormones. So I'm sorry, too much fat in the body starts to make us have more female hormones. So if you're gaining weight and you're having painful periods, estrogen is a hormone that has receptors to the breast tissue. So a lot of times what can happen is we find that our breasts get really, really swollen. Our cycles are very painful, very clotty. It's a sign that there's an imbalance between estrogen and a hormone called progesterone. And I'm doing this because what happens is there should be enough of a contrast between the two hormones. Oftentimes imbalances in the cycle or heaviness or painful periods comes from too much estrogen and not enough progesterone in the body. And that can be a side effect from additional weight gain. So the point of the story is that if you found that you've put on a lot of body weight, that could be a contributing factor. Obviously, liver health is very important when it comes to painful periods because all of the hormones are going to go through the liver to be filtered and to be funneled. So whenever I'm working with someone that has cystic acne, polycystic ovarian syndrome, this is not a plug-in, but if you haven't seen my latest YouTube video, check it out. It's all about the difference between polycystic ovarian syndrome and endometriosis. It also does shed a little bit of light on how they're different, but also how they're the same. And I do talk a little bit about hormones in this. Check it out, Dr. Elise Tercy on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, go ahead, subscribe to the channel too if you're not doing so. So back to the question of, is birth control safe? I don't recommend using birth control. Someone was asking my thoughts on vaccines and obviously everything going on with the pandemic and with the potential for a vaccine to be coming out. It seems like, there's certain parties that want to create this vaccine and have it put out and utilized into us pretty rapidly. I don't care if it took them 6 months, 6 years, or 16 years to make a vaccine. I am not touching it. So I'm not pro-vaccination. I'm against vaccines. There's certain ones that I do think have obviously yielded some results. But I think that adding in potential stress and inflammation to the body is not the best option. I think you're better off just letting your body pick up what it's going to pick up, and then your body has the kind of like immense capacity to heal. So I don't think that vaccines are supportive. Vaccines do have some stuff in them that's not healthy. And so vaccines do contain adjuvants, they contain mercury and heavy metals. Obviously, the point of a vaccine is to create an immune response, a robust immune response. But there have been lots of articles and research about vaccine injuries. There's so much. This is like one of the hottest topics and probably the most frequently asked question. And I don't ever like to put my opinions on someone. I think that it's your due diligence as a consumer to figure out what is the best for you. Take the knowledge, read about it, but get educated. I think that's step one, is if you're someone that's pro or against, the first thing is to get educated. There's tons of really reputable literature out there that you can read about that tells the truth about vaccines and not really as a money-making industry. And something I want to comment on, which is a little holistic of me, but the government gives nothing for free. Nobody gets anything for free. So why do you want to give me a free vaccine? Like, when have you ever wanted to give me something for free? Never. So I don't really want your free vaccine from Walgreens. And it's funny because I will, go in and run into Walgreens or CVS and they're like, oh, did you get your flu shot? And I'm just like, I will not be getting my flu shot. Thank you very much. I have no interest in that. So your immune system is incredibly able to tolerate and handle things that come into your body. Obviously, it's also the quality of your life. So if you're not taking good care of yourself, that does directly affect your immune system. So if you're thinking of what are better strategies so that I don't have to get the vaccine, but I can support myself, obviously nutritional therapy, implementing some really good nutritional recommendations, adding in a lot of phytonutrients, a lot of greens, doing things that are going to support your immune system. And by default, protein consumption is one of those. So if you're not getting an adequate level of protein, bare minimum, this is bare minimum, like bare minimum, 75, 85 grams of protein per day, you are protein deficient, and your entire immune system is protein in nature. So we have all these little cells. They're called immunoglobulins, IgGs, IgMs, IgA. All of it is protein based. Your immune system does have a lot of protein that it needs to help support yourself. All enzymes in our body, for those of you that don't know me, I practice enzyme replacement therapy. All enzymes in our body are protein in nature. And so enzymes are something that we need to repair tissue. Enzymes are required to run metabolic processes. They allow us to do things with our metabolism and our cells. So definitely protein is a required thing that we need. Sugar drops your immune system. So I know I'm kind of going deep into the questions, but I really hope that you guys can find some value and gain something and learn a little bit about this. But when your sugar levels go above a certain number, your immune system can drop by 75% for 3 hours. So when you're eating, your blood sugar can go up to a certain number, and then basically your white blood cells, your lymphocytes, part of the cells of your immune system, both your innate and adaptive immune system, they run away. They're like, we don't want to be involved here. So sugar consumption is definitely something to be mindful of as you're navigating this and really thinking of how to be proactive. And it's my rule of thumb for my patients is always single digit sugar. If you're reading a label and you're like, oh, I'm looking at the label and it says 12 grams of sugar, always single digit sugar, 5-6 grams for products. Somebody wanted to know, I feel like, how did I get there? How did I get on sugar when we're talking about vaccines? Your immune system. Somebody wanted to know heartburn, acid reflux, what to do. So acid reflux means that you don't have enough mucus in your stomach. So I'm pointing here because your stomach often refers pain here. The stress point to the stomach, it lives right here under the rib cage. If there's weakness in the stomach, usually what happens is we can get a little burpy. We can also feel tightness in our esophagus or our chest, and we end up going like this. We clear our throat. Sometimes postnasal drip and coughs are other signs that there is acid reflux or gastritis. If you've had imaging, you may have had that diagnosis before where the doctor said there is signs of gastritis, which just means the stomach has inflammation. Now, it's really important to have a very strong mucous membrane in our stomach. So our stomach should be very mucilaginous and very kind of sticky. But what happens with reflux is that we're wearing down that barrier. And so what happens is we put acidic foods in, we don't have that protective coating, and now the food becomes problematic. The problem with reflux, it's not an acid production problem. So when you take proton pump inhibitors, when you take omeprazole, when you take Prevacid, Prilosec, Tagamet, Zantac, those are all working on the hydrogen receptors, acid receptors in the stomach. There's not a problem with your acid. You're not producing too much acid or too little acid. The problem arises that your stomach mucosal membrane is weak. And when the membrane is weak, that's where we have problems. So what can you do for acid reflux? I would definitely recommend marshmallow root, mastic tree aloe, slippery elm. There's so many medicinal herbs that can support and recoat the stomach lining so that you don't feel when you're eating foods that are acidic like coffee or chocolate or oranges or things in the acid producing environment, they don't irritate you or cause that postnasal drip or cause you to even have puffiness or bloating, because that can happen. So you definitely want to support acid reflux if possible. And when you take medication and pharmaceuticals, what's happening is that you're actually blocking your ability to absorb nutrients. Because by default, our stomach needs a very acidic environment. That's just what it needs. And when you're using antacids, you're going against the acid production that's required for the stomach to actually heal. So we definitely want to make sure that if there's reflux or if there's heartburn, we want to know the associated symptoms of tightness, clearing the throat, postnasal drip, chest tightness too. Now, something else I want to bring up, this actually came up last week when I was working with someone, is that she was having difficulty breathing. She was like, I feel like I can't take a breath in. And of course, I'm thinking maybe there's reflux, maybe there's acid in her esophagus. What happens when acid comes up is the esophagus gets tight, it constricts, and then we feel that as tightness. Another thing that could be happening in the sense of feeling like you can't breathe fully in is there could be a rib out of alignment. And so the ribs are cartilaginously attached. So our rib cage, it's actually a cage, and the ribs kind of do this. They should kind of lock into cartilage. Well, they move because they're cartilage in nature. They have wiggle room. The ribs should move. That's their job. When we take a breath in and we, contract, breathe in, breathe out, we actually get movement in the rib cage. Sometimes what can happen is maybe we fall, or maybe something happens where our ribs, our cartilage, and the rib head are not aligned in different spots. And so sometimes if you're having difficulty breathing, obviously some manual work like an adjustment can help. So this woman had come in on, what day was it? Whatever day it was last week. And I definitely checked in with her as to, is there reflux? Are there other secret signs of reflux? And then I also did a thoracic adjustment with her so that she can actually get more mobility and feel like she can breathe. So definitely check if it's heartburn. What else? Somebody was asking about diet stuff. I don't really want to talk too much about that, but diet anything, rule of thumb is don't fall into the trap. Like diet this, diet that, don't do it. Okay, diet stuff. Although yes, there's no calories, it's not going to stimulate your insulin production from your pancreas. It's gunky. It will create lymphatic irritation and congestion. So don't do it. Someone was asking me some stuff about favorite books and healing stuff. So you guys know, I'll put this down because I really want to talk about this. I am in a holistic realm of life, I would say. And that does have a lot of, welcome to Seacliff. Being in a holistic practice, so that's just my town little bell. There's like a little bell that happens. The fire department does that. Anyways, maybe you won't be able to hear it, but the point of the story is that your health is a function of three things: chemical, physical, emotional. What you think, what you eat, what you do, how you treat yourself, it's all connected. And so obviously stress can create a lot of damage in the body. Somebody was asking me about like healing questions, and I want to speak to this because I think that this is something that is so important, that timing of your life. Timing is so important, and sometimes the timing of your healing journey matters. So, some people, I've worked with them and I said maybe right now is not the right time for you to be prioritizing your health because it seems like you're not ready to do that. So whenever we talk about healing and getting better and being healthier in so many different ways, recognize that there is a time frame to that, because timing is so important to say I have the energy and I have the ability to spend the time to fix this problem. We always will have things that are coming up. So timing, that's just an excuse, in my opinion, that if you're saying, well, I don't have time, there's never the perfect time. But we make time for things that are a priority to us and that we care about. Somebody was asking about Books, I can definitely give you some of my favorite suggestions for books. I don't have any of the books here. Most of them now are at the office, but I'm a big Dr. Joe Dispenza book person. I love his books. I love his books. I love his books. Did I mention I love his books? He's so amazing about the quantum field and talks about how every possible potential can happen. So it's pretty cool if you're into like more like, I guess it's more like quantum physics concepts, but really good book. And what else do I want to share with you guys? I think that's really it. So I just wanted to put this little Q&A together because you guys have been asking me some questions.